Hi everyone, welcome to the Dyslexia Life Hack Show with me, Matthew Head. In this episode, we're talking to Marni Spicer, who is co-founder of Dyscalculia and co-developer of Table Fables. She's Australian-based, and with a UK-based business partner, Rebecca, they're on a mission to cure maths anxiety for all for good. If you're dyslexic and don't think you have dyscalculia, it's still worth a good listen because you'll pick up some tips to help you with maths along the way in this episode. Marni has a background as a life coach. She's worked in IT and also in graphic design. So I feel this probably feeds a lot into the Dyscalculia system. As always, I will post links to Dyscalculia and Table Fables in the show notes, which will be available at dyslexialifehacks.com/podcast. Welcome to the show, Marni.
Thank you, Matt. It's great to be on your show.
That's all right. I thought we'd start as a good scientist with a definition of terms. Describe to everybody exactly what dyscalculia is.
Well, that is quite an interesting question because dyscalculia is still, dyscalculia, yeah. I mean, it's kind of uncool the way they say it, isn't it? I keep trying to change it to dyscalculia.
It does make a bit more sense like that, yeah.
Yeah, it does. It does. The right pronunciation is dyscalculia. But yeah, so really what it is a bit like dyslexia. It is described as dyslexia with numbers, except there are quite a few other attributes that go along with it, as I'm sure dyslexia also has. But, so generally speaking, people with dyscalculia, they're not great with mental maths. That's a struggle for them. But time management, remembering names is a really big one. Driving too fast and too slow, which is interesting. Get lost easily, and they misplace things very easily. They one of the really early signs actually of dyscalculia is not being able to read an analog clock, and they're using that as a little bit of a early warning signal for students and for younger kids in school, that if they really struggle, then that could be a very telltale sign. But yeah, there's quite a few things that go along with it. So generally, it is dyslexia with numbers. So that's probably the best way to describe what dyscalculia is.
That's really interesting because a bit like dyslexia, where everybody goes, oh, that's the one where you can't spell. You've just listed a load of other things underneath the not being very good with maths and mental arithmetic that also is affected. So it's quite easy to oversimplify things. How is the driving thing? You mentioned that you could go too fast or too slow. What is that, just because you don't have a feel for what?
Well, that's it. I think, people with dyscalculia, often time is a real problem. So is distance. And say, when they say driving too fast or too slow, it's kind of like, generally speaking, you travel at a speed and you kind of know by the visuals going past your window what kind of speed you're doing, I think. And also, if you are bad with numbers, then reading your speedometer isn't going to be as simple as for somebody who recognizes numbers very easily. So, they're not great at gauging distance and speed and, which is all kind of related to time in a way. So, yeah, I don't really know the absolute science or what's going on in the brain with that, but I just know a lot of people with dyscalculia struggle with driving, and learning how to drive too is a bit of a problem. But yeah, it's a conglomerate of things, and obviously no one person is the same. Of course. So it's all very individual. But dyscalculia is a pretty new, not diagnosis. I don't really want to say that, but dyslexia has been around for a long time. At least 20 years people have been. Obviously it's been around since the dawn of humankind, since we were made to read. Since education began, I suppose, because before then, most of us weren't really doing maths or English, you know what I mean? So, yeah, it's kind of the neurodiversity of humankind is extreme and expanding forever moving forward. But I think, so quite often I think being able to pin labels on people is always quite tricky, but it's not without its benefits, I suppose. Yeah, especially when it comes to knowing how to teach somebody with dyscalculia or teach somebody with dyslexia. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking as well, it's sometimes the labels are kind of, it's horrible to label people because as individuals we're all unique anyway. But if you know you're dyslexic, dyscalculic, autistic, ADHD, you can then go find specialists in that field that will help you with that area. Where if you are sort of running around blind, you struggle to work it out.
And same with parents. I think it's really, especially with behavioral issues with children, I think it's really important that they know that, ways to be able to help their child. I think that's key. And then, you help your child, you also help yourself. So I think that's where being diagnosed with things is very beneficial.
Do you find a lot of parents come in and they're like, I do the same as my child with this? I've had a lot of dyslexics who find out when their children are picked up and they're like, well, I do that. Hang on, I best go check this out.
Yeah, that's right. For sure. That's right. Dyscalculia is the same. Generally speaking, when a parent does recognize that at least either one of them might have dyscalculia or a grandparent, or, they can see the absolute lineage of where the dyscalculia has come from. But genetics has a big role to play. There's no doubt about that.
Do you find you have a lot of crossover? Do you find dyscalculia is more likely in dyslexics, or is it quite sort of discrete from one another?
Well, they estimate that about 50% of people with dyslexia also have dyscalculia, which I'm not exactly sure where they get their estimations from. But I have noticed with the studies I'm doing and the people I'm talking to, a lot of people with dyscalculia also have ADD, which I think is interesting.
Yes,
yeah, and that's a kind of quite a new link which is being discovered, or certainly a new link for me. But then when I put in the research, it has a few mumblings about it. But it's it's not guaranteed that you have one and have the other two, but it does seem like a lot of people I talk to definitely have ADD as well. They know they do, yeah. So, and it can also be, when they're doing their own research on whether or not they have dyscalculia, they think, well, yeah, I do have ADD, and then they kind of make the link through their ADD that they have dyscalculia. And I wonder if dyslexia is. Do you find a lot of dyslexics have ADD?
I've seen a few of them. I've yet to have a guest on the podcast that's ADD and dyslexic, but I'm starting to see quite a lot of it. And some of the books and bits and pieces I've read on it will mention the sort of attention deficit comes in. But whether that's ADD comes through because you get frustrated as a dyslexic person, particularly in the school system where it's just not working for you and your brain's halfway out here.
Yeah.
And all that kind of stuff. You're more interested in what's going on outside, or you're looking at that ceiling, wondering how all the lights and pipes work above it. Whether that's the kind of... I want to get somebody on who's got ADD and dyslexia and understand how the two bolt together, because I've got dyslexia without ADD, but I've also never been sort of tested for ADD. And I don't think, part of my mitigation for some of the dyslexic traits is actually buckling down and working even harder and being more relentless, which feels not like an ADD trait at all. So I am kind of wondering, really.
I agree. It's a bit of a chicken and the egg scenario, I think, too. Yeah, and I mean, as if any child who can't understand something that's being taught to them and isn't given the patience and the time, or the different style of teaching that they need to be able to understand, of course they're going to go floating away, somewhere else. And also, they do know that with ADD as well, once a person decides that they see value in learning something, or they get, they just like the subject, or they do really well. It's just a matter of finding the link between, well, why do I need to know this? And what's the point of knowing it? And I really think that in schools, we need to focus so much more on that. We need to show real life reasons for why children are learning things, especially as they get older. Maybe when they're younger, it's not so much a problem, but certainly when they start to think for themselves, teachers really need to start to relate to real world things, I think, a lot more. And it would hold interest for a lot more children too, I believe, anyway.
Well, you think about it, like even as adults, like if we're doing something or we've been taken to a place we don't want to be, we have itchy feet and, I don't know, wherever, say you're at a fancy dinner and it's just boring and you're twiddling with your cufflinks or you think your feet itch or your legs, we all do it, even as grown adults. In my late 30s,
that's
I still do it. So
yeah, and then the way we teach, when you think about it, we make kids sit down and they're stagnant and they're being forced to learn in that way. And it's just like, come on, man, let's just, at least with boys, I think they learn so much better on the move. Let's get them doing something. And, as they, especially with, particular subjects like biology, for example, where you need to learn the parts of the human body. You need to learn the names, of the bones, for example. Do something where they're moving, labeling things, making up rhyming poems to remember bits and pieces. You know what I mean? And it's just the way they teach too, I think also lacks a lot of imagination and thought for how children in particular learn, So anyway, you don't want to get me started on the education system because that's a whole other subject.
We could get heavily into that one. So before we end up with a long kind of talk in the education system and we don't talk about a website, I thought we'd maybe take a slight left turn. And where did the idea of Dyscalculia Me come from, and how did that where was the seeds of that?
Okay, so the seed, we actually did it the other way around. So Table Fables, which is a learning tool for children in particular with dyscalculia, although all kids can learn their times tables. So Table Fables is a website which is designed to teach the times tables and division through visual learning. So every number is a character and every times table is a story. And because we have the numbers, every number has a particular setting that their stories happen in. They have a particular characteristic as well. So there's a lot of memory triggers. For example, number 7 is a boomerang, looks like the number 7 as well. Number 8 is a snowman. And so when 7 times 8 happens, or 8 times 7, the boomerang comes in. He always likes to chop things. So he chops the head of the snowman. 2 bits go rolling down the hill. There's a 5 on one and a 6 on the other, which is 56. And so kids just visually remember that. They go, oh, the boomerang, snowman. Oh, yeah, chopped head, bang, 56. And they just remember, and it's very fast. Visual memory works very quickly. Unlike, say, learning songs, which can work, but we found that a lot of children had to sing all the way through, the song, the 8 times table song to get 7 times 8. And then they know the answer. It's not very efficient. So yes, my best mate in London, who also, she has dyscalculia. She also has dyslexia. And
what about yourself?
She got 3. Sorry, no, myself, no, I'm just the old neurotypical, boring neurotypical. Which is unfortunate. Because I've worked with so many people who aren't neurotypical, it's I get a little bit envious sometimes because, I think the way their brains work is just a lot more exciting. I honestly think that children who aren't neurotypical are the people of the future.
Oh, wow.
I honestly think that, with the fact that, let's face it, our jobs and things are going to be taken over by AI and machines and computers. The real thing that's going to be left for humanity is our creativity. And there's no denying that kids with, you name any of the labels, really, they generally speaking have that they're in the creative areas. They're very creative. A lot of kids with dyscalculia are really amazing with language. So they are, great with writing stories. Their imaginations are just, beyond, which brings me back to Rebecca Ginger, who was the creator of Table Fables, or the inventor.
Right.
She was faced with the problem of needing to teach her I can't remember, her daughter, the times tables, and that nothing she did was working. And she's like, I have to solve this problem, because she needed her daughter to get into another school after year 5. And so she just sat down, started drawing little cartoons for every story, like just drawings and explaining the numbers, characters. Anyway, it seemed to work. And so then I landed back in London because I left for 6 years, went back to Sydney for a while. And then I saw her drawings and she explained to me what she was doing. And I was like, this is great. This is awesome. And she's like, I want to turn it into a website. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll help you. Let's do it together. So then, Bex pretty much had all the stories in her head. I mean, that's how amazing she is. She really had it all there. But I just helped bring it to life with the images and then we added the accents, which I don't know whether that was a great idea now, but it makes it funnier, and it helps the kids also remember the characters a little better, seeing the boomerang's Aussie and the snowman's Russian and the snake is Indian, and it just adds a little bit of humor.
The number 6 is the girl with the big sort of hair that goes to number 6.
Yes.
And she's got like this heavy Irish accent.
Yeah, she's Northern Irish.
And I'm like, why is she so thick Irish?
Yeah.
But every time I think of it, number 6, I can hear the heavy Northern Irish accent.
Yeah.
I know exactly what it is.
A very masculine sounding female.
Yeah, I was like, they got a male Irish person to say that voice. She is hilarious.
Yes. No, so it is good, and it gets a lot of the kids laughing. And, Bex is a big believer in learning and laughing at the same time. And so, so we developed Table Fables together. It took us a couple of years, about 2 or 3 years until we launched. And it's still a work in progress.
Did you use your sort of IT and graphics background to bring all the animations to life?
I did, yeah. So I kind of sat down and did the 122 drawings or something like that, which was bum-numbing to say the least. But that was good. And then I am a web developer too, but we hired someone else to build the original site. But and it progressed, and then we found somebody to turn it into animations, and it just progressed forward. And we have a clock as well now to help kids read the analog clock. So on the same website we have it's a poo, and we teach with poos and toilets. So very high.
Sorry, you teach
stuff.
what?
The analog clock is taught to children with poos and toilets. So P is for past and toilet is for 2. So you've got poos of all different sizes on the 1 to 6, and then you've got toilets from all different sizes from 6 to 12. Anyway, it makes sense if you watch it. It's very funny. It is very funny. It makes me laugh every time. And, we're helping kids learn how to tell the time on the clock, which is great because that is a definite real struggle for kids with dyscalculia too. So we did the Table Fables, which was great. But then at the same time, the fact that we were designing this tool for children with dyscalculia, we kind of wanted to set up something that I could continue to work on as well, because Becky's baby kind of is Table Fables and mine is the dyscalculia.me site. And with my life coaching background, I wanted to bring that in somehow. And so now that is really starting to take off with the dyscalculia. I've designed a program to help people with dyscalculia or learning difficulties so mass anxiety is a very big problem for adults with dyscalculia.
Yes.
They really struggle. And, numbers and maths is around us all the time. You can't escape it. And so I just help people overcome their mass anxiety, really get them to a space where they are willing and ready to move on with their maths learning. Wherever they stopped, they can continue on.
Yeah, because I imagine it's a bit like myself with the dyslexia, where it held me back for a long time being anxious about writing stuff, because it sort of mirrors into maths. Like I can imagine you sat there and you're like, I want to do a more senior job at work and I can do all the reports, blah, blah, blah. But they want me to now do finance or time plannings into a spreadsheet or whatever. Oh my God, this is maths, and I absolutely want to run away and hide from it. Even though Excel will do the multiplication, but I imagine the whole thing just doesn't talk to them out of the screen.
Yeah. If you start to become anxious with anything, doesn't matter what it is, being able to achieve or do that one thing is going to be a lot harder than if you don't have the anxiety. So I pretty much just help people get rid of the anxiety. And then, for example, one of my, I don't really like calling them clients. Clients is a weird name for me, but anyway, I need to find a better word for the people I help.
Yes.
She wants to build her own business.
Okay.
So she is a faciologist or something. So I guess she's a beauty therapist of some sort that specializes in certain things. But the one thing holding her back is that she can't do numbers. She's literally scared of doing numbers, and that's what's holding her back. So I'm helping her lose that fear, gain confidence, understand that, if you're just taught in a different way, you will learn. So just, and that is key. It's not the idea that people with dyscalculia cannot learn maths is kind of almost ridiculous now. Of course, there are probably, it's all a spectrum thing, isn't it? So probably somebody who's got severe dyscalculia, they probably will struggle to ever really do all maths. But, things to like spreadsheets, etc. I really find that by telling someone with dyscalculia, look, turn it into a language, because maths is really just another language when you think about it.
It is, yeah.
And that kind of instantly makes them feel better about maths. But, what's happening is so many of the people I help, they've kind of forgotten what happened at school, or they pushed it to the back of their memory, or they just haven't thought about it in a long time. And the whole thing with life coaching, which relates to anxiety, which comes from, the early stages of your life when these particular emotions were set inside you. So when you were first in the classroom and you were singled out to be different, the teachers weren't they were only trying to help you. But just that one thing of a child being singled out amongst their peers is sometimes really quite life-changing. Just that one little thing. And I certainly don't believe in victim mentality, but I 100% believe in the fact that you need to go back and you need to undo the emotions that are attached to whatever may have happened to you. And to be honest with you, most people with dyscalculia are made to feel stupid because, when you can't do maths straight away, you were made to believe that you weren't very intelligent. And I suppose that probably happens a lot with dyslexia too. If you can't read, then you must be dumb, and it's just like, obviously not the case at all. But as a young child, influence, very easily influenced, it's going to have a very big impact. And then, a lot of the people I help, they don't really recognize the impact of all of that in their adult life until they go back. Because I use timeline therapies and matrix therapies, which are very, very life-changing kind of processes that you do with life coaching. And so then, literally we undo the damage that's been done pretty much. And then they can move forward.
I see. So you take a deep dive in the past and kind of, I guess, reset the event that really got them, oh my God, and get the anxiety to disappear. Then do you then refer them almost to Table Fables to get them to have a handle on maths? Or how do you do that with an adult? Because it's good fun, Table Fables, but it's very much aimed at a 5 to 6 year old, that kind of primary school audience. Do you find adults jump on it as well?
Well, for sure. Adults who really just are desperate, say, to learn their times tables, they will use Table Fables. Bex is hoping to create an adult version, actually, which will be lots of fun. I imagine it'll be very rude, but I think it's
going to be rude.
Yes, it will be very rude. So she's hoping to do that in the future. But yeah, adults. So there is a doctor in the States, Dr. Schroeder, and she's pretty much leading the way on training tutors to be able to teach children and adults with dyscalculia, because, you know, pretty much everything has to be taught visually. And in a way, I don't know the absolute teachings of how they do it, but I know that it is more visual. And it's kind of a little bit like, like I said, you know, don't think of it as maths, especially when it comes to spreadsheets, you know, because it is kind of formula-based. You know, the cells are formula-based. And so you think of it as a language, not as a maths. And yeah, I imagine Dr. Schroeder, the adult program, is probably focusing more on helping people learn how to do spreadsheets and things, you know, the stuff that you really do need to use when you've got your own business or.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, that is pretty much what, you know. But yeah, I mean, a lot of dyscalculics are great at lots of different maths, you know. So algebra, some are really great at algebra, some are great with statistics, you know, and you're just like, wow, how do you get statistics when you generally can't get numbers, you know? But it is quite fascinating.
Well, I used to find the more complicated the maths was, the better I was at it. So the basic stuff tripped me over. But I got into calculus and statistics at uni. You could just do it because you sort of remove the rote learning part out of it. It makes me think of, you were saying about painting a story. That's kind of, maths moved from being stories to just cold numbers. It's where the inspiration of Alice in Wonderland comes from, where it's the cat. What's the smile without the cat? Because it used to be like 4 apples and all this kind of thing. And then they moved it to very much just cold numbers. And interesting, it sounds like dyscalculics also think a bit like dyslexics, where they're picture thinkers. So I really learned how to do the alphabet beginning of this year, where part of the Davis program, where instead of doing the, you know, ABCD, you have to swinging all the way through it and singing the whole alphabet song or bits of it to learn it, you end up modeling the alphabet and then taking a picture of it in your mind where it is and sort of hovering over the picture to find where the letters are and what's to the side of it, which sounds like a very similar thing to what you're saying with the times tables, where it's, you don't want to be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 every time you need to work stuff out. It's like, well, what is that? That is that answer. Yeah, Barney,
and this is the thing with the foundational maths. It's, you know, there are just, you need those foundations to kind of build on. And I just think it's very sad when the education system fails, you know, children who don't learn in a neurotypical way. They literally fail. They just don't help them at all. And it was interesting. I was talking, you know, one of my clients is in Iceland, and
oh wow, global reach.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
And you're in Brisbane, aren't you?
I am in Brisbane, Australia. Yes, the time zone isn't the best, but you know, it's kind of cool. I do a lot of my work at night in the evenings, and then I can do whatever I want in the day. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, she was saying that she was diagnosed quite early, which I thought was fascinating because America's quite ahead with dyscalculia. They diagnose in schools early, but then there's not really much more that they do after that point. But Iceland, she was pretty much told that she doesn't need to do maths. Well, don't worry about maths. We won't teach you because pretty much we don't know how to teach you. So at first she thought that was really great. It was like, woo, excellent. I don't have to do something I hate. And then she recognized, oh no, this isn't good. All these doors are closed to me now. I can't do so much that I might have wanted to do because I don't have basic maths. So, you know, they really do their kids a disservice. It's literally like saying, well, too hard basket. We're just not going to teach you. Is that all right? And it's not all right. It's not all right.
No, it's not at all. Because imagine as an adult, you get yourself in lots of debt and struggle with understanding interest, and all the financial stuff is a math system, isn't it? So
that's exactly it.
Stumbling over, struggling to buy houses, getting ripped off buying cars, not investing in whatever it is, because you just don't understand this whole world that most of the capitalist place is built on, really.
Oh, and now with this digital world, you know, I mean, once we had, you know, I mean, obviously we had just our money in our bank accounts, the cash in our wallets. Now, we're using all these pay systems on our phones, and the amount of times I've seen, you really have to keep track of your bills now.
Yes,
because all of a sudden, whether it's your internet company or whatever, they'll take more money out than they should. And you just wouldn't know if you don't keep track. Mm-hmm. So keeping track has never been more important, with the amount of kind of, what's it called? Cyber theft going on now. It's crazy.
If you imagine that you don't have much of a concept of the numbers, no longer is it handing a £10 note over and then you get the goods, but the £10 note doesn't come back. You hand a plastic card over, it comes back to you with the goods. It doesn't feel like any transactions happened either. And if you're really, it doesn't feel like that to me sometimes. And I don't think I have dyscalculia, but imagine if you're pretty poor dyscalculic, so the numbers just don't make sense. It gets you completely lost.
That's right. You just wouldn't even know. I mean, they could add an extra zero onto something, you wouldn't even know. But, the one good thing about, paying with card and stuff nowadays is they don't have to worry about, did I get the right change? And because that's a real struggle for them.
Yes, of course.
So there's advantages and there's disadvantages. But I think baseline maths, everybody has the right to know and to be able to, everybody has the right to know how to do a spreadsheet, because, that's, you really can't run your own business. You can't go out alone if you don't understand money and numbers, and that everybody has that basic right, I think.
I think so. I completely agree with you on that one. So how are you planning to sort of move Dyscalculia Me and Table Fables forwards in the future? You already touched on maybe doing an adult version of Table Fables, which sounds like hilarious.
Yeah, I know. It really needs to happen. I think Table Fables is going to merge into a kind of online space where you'll be able to come and get, kind of life hacks for dyscalculia. As far as, say, learning how to read an analog clock, doing your times tables. I think Bex is working on fractions as well. Oh, yeah, it's going to be called farting fractions. So you can imagine. It's an old grandpa who loves to fart. And the
mind boggles what that's going to look like.
He's Welsh as well. He's Welsh.
Oh my God.
Like what you do, has some really good ways around doing, just do it like this and then you'll be able to manage. There's that kind of solution for almost everything as well to do with numbers. So, I think Table Fables, it's probably going to change its name a little bit, but that space will be a place where you can actually go to learn your foundations. Mainly for children at the moment, but hopefully we move on from there, because teenagers is a massive, massive issue as well. Teenagers. And they've kind of been left behind because dyscalculia is still quite a new diagnosis, and they're kind of really in the grey zone. And, they've got a lot to handle these days. And then on top of that, they have kind of misdiagnosed or not even recognised. It's not even recognised. Let's face it. In the UK, it's really poor at recognising. Same with Australia. They just refuse to have screening for kids who kind of stand out. Because every child can be good at maths. It's just the way it is. So when a teacher says, well, they're just no good at maths, that should just be a little alarm bell saying, well, okay, they're not good at maths the way I teach it, but they obviously need to learn in a different way and then they'll be good at maths. So, obviously we have minds that are better with numbers and they're just naturally gifted with numbers.
I think having the basic right to know the fundamentals, everybody should have the same with language and science and everything else. That, yes, I might not be an English laureate, but I should have the basic right to be able to write competent stories and emails and stuff, things like that.
Yes.
The same with maths. People should be able to understand the financial world. Like, they don't need to be the next maths professor, but the basic right should be there.
That's right. And so, we really do. I mean, when we first developed Table Fables, we were walking into schools in London, trying to, giving it away, trying to give it away. We take the teachers through how it works. And a lot of the teachers, all the teachers actually seemed really keen on it. Then it would be the head of maths who would decide on whether or not we have this or we don't have this. And pretty much the head of maths always stood in the way, and that was it, gone. Not even, and we weren't even asking for any money. It was just, please, 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 can you use this in your classrooms? Because then every child can learn. We don't leave anyone behind. They can all learn. And also it's a really great reference for teachers in the classroom to, go, okay, yeah, the boomerang and the snowman. What's the answer to that, kids? 56, that's right. Rather than going, okay, Johnny, do 7 circles. Now in 7 circles, put 8 dots and now count them. And you're like, yeah, great.
Brilliant.
Because it's just one of those things. You just need to know the numbers. You need to know. Having an understanding of what multiplication and division is, yeah, great. You do need to have an understanding. But just having those numbers in your head for referral, just knowing that that's what the numbers are. And at the same time as we're teaching the multiplications, we're teaching division as well, which is really key, because division is actually used more in maths when you think about it, because fractions and all that is division. So it's super important, but it's very easy. The kids just learn the stories the other way around. They become kind of like a detective, and we give them a big clue, of like, say, 56 divided by 7, and so would have like the 2 snowman bits, and then they put those, and then they kind of do it backwards, and they're like, oh yeah, 8 was the other character in that story. And
yes, because they imagine the snowballs at the end and almost roll them back up the hill and stick it on top of each other. It's like 8.
The 8. Yes, that's it. Who's the missing character? So the more and also the site's really great because we're not cheap, but we're not super expensive, because we believe in rewarding the children when they finish learning their tables. We give back a lot of the money that's been paid into. So we kind of hold it there, ready to give back the money to the child that's finished their tables. And then we also have prizes for the most practiced kids in our VIP area, which you probably didn't see, but, the names come up for the most practiced, and we send them a little prize in the post. So, it's all about keeping the child motivated to keep learning, because we have a 17-day challenge on there. Once they finish it, they win back some of the money, which is really great. And it really works. Yeah. Otherwise, because we tried, it is interesting, because when you develop these apps and things, if you give them away for not much money, then you find that the parents are like, well, who cares? It only cost me that much. I'm not going to bother. But when they have had to put a little bit of money in, they then think, well, okay, you've got to use this because I paid this much. And also, if you do finish, we get some money back. You get money back and you get a prize, So we needed to build those factors in too, even though it probably slowed down how many people would take it up. But it doesn't fail to work. Yeah. So then the people who use us, they are like, oh, that's brilliant. That's great. I've never had my child want to jump on something to, they're literally, I want to do my Table Fables. And they're like, okay, yes. After your breakfast. We're like, fantastic. Right. So yes, we do believe in encouraging learning and rewarding learning and practice. So that's a big ethos behind what we do. Yeah,
because it's quite funny. The Irish 6 comes up and tells you can get a boatload of cash back. So this is it. I like the way you've got skin in the game and then a motivation to get on with it. And it's really clever. It's just come on and holding cash, like you just get all this cash back.
Ching, ching, ching.
All of this.
Money talks.
Yeah. I was like, that's really cool.
Nothing motivates kids more than cash these days. No. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So,
is it compatible with because it seems like every kid I see has got an iPad of some description. Is it compatible with that, or do you have to do it via the computer? I've only sort of accessed it via my PC, to be honest.
Oh, yeah. No, you can do it on an iPad. Works on an iPad fine. I think a lot of people have asked why we haven't created an app, but the answer to that is we also like to send the parents emails telling them what times tables their child has finished today. inspiring the parent to kind of do a little test with their kid. They get monitored emails, so telling them where their child is at with their learning process. So, and there's just a lot of other things you can do when you keep it on, web-based rather than app-based.
Yes.
Yeah, so it does work fine. You can create a shortcut to your iPad as well, so it just, works exactly like an app. But, a lot of parents maybe aren't that savvy, but it's fine. You just keep it in your bookmarks kind of thing on an iPad.
Yeah, that was where I was going.
But it works on everything: phone, iPad, and laptop, computer.
Yeah, okay. So you spend quite a bit of time in Australia as well as London. Do you find the neurodiversity world different between the two places? Is the attitude?
Not really. I find the people who are dyscalculic or exactly the same. The systems, though, that they come out are slightly different. As explained in Iceland, they do get screened and then they get dumped. And the UK, they don't really screen. It's not and this is the thing. They've been screening for dyslexia for quite a long time now. And it's just like, well, come on, man. This is a significant learning difficulty. And if you get it, just like with dyslexia, if you diagnose early, the earlier the better. Because the earlier you or know that they need to learn in a certain way, the better it is for the child. I don't know whether it's just laziness or they just can't be bothered. I've had some really good conversations with people who work with dyslexia screening and the school processes, and they pretty much bang their heads against the wall with frustration because they're just the money isn't there, I suppose, at the end of the day. And what it is, though, is that we want to try, because screening isn't very expensive, and you can actually screen for free now online. You can do online screenings for free. But we would like that diagnosis to be enough for the teacher or the school to pay attention. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be the case. They then have to go on to get a much more complicated diagnosis, which can cost £300 to £400 upwards, or $600-800 upwards in Australia. And parents just can't. A lot of parents just can't afford that kind of money. So it would be really great if the screening was all they needed, and they generally do. If you are in a schooling system which has a level of education about dyscalculia in particular, then you're probably going to get somewhere with the screening results. But that's the problem too. Most teachers don't have any training on how to teach kids with dyscalculia. And obviously I don't blame them, because it is a minority of kids in the classroom. But it's frustrating when you kind of come up with something like Table Fables that we know works for all children, because it's not just kids with dyscalculia who use us, it's all children use us. And we know we can teach all children their times tables in a very quick, easy way, and that would be beneficial to the whole classroom. And the fact that you can't even give it away for free, it's just really frustrating. It just makes you question, are you really here trying to teach, or are you just jumping through the hoops? Are you just like ticking the boxes? I don't know. So it is very frustrating.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Once again, we should get on to that topic.
Yeah, you're talking to somebody who struggled at school themselves, so we could be on this for hours.
Yes. I know, right? I know.
Ever since I launched the website, and it's going to be a year old in a couple of months, it surprises me how much there is in the neurodiversity world for teaching stuff that I thought wasn't teachable. And it's like, wow, all of these people like yourself, and there's loads of them springing up left, right, and centre. They're like, hey, this is really clever. And it does work for neurotypical as well. So it's, if I put that in front of my Table Fables in front of my niece, she would love it, because she just laugh at all the stories.
It is frustrating, but it is what it is. And, I think I'm not saying that online learning is the way that children should be taught, because I don't think it's the right way. But at least now there are tools out there that as long as people hear about them, it's just getting the message out there. It's really quite difficult because there's so much junk out there too.
Oh, good.
And, once bitten, twice shy for a lot of parents, because they throw money at something and it doesn't work. And then they're like, well, I'm not going to try this, which is maybe 10 times more expensive. I don't blame them because, there is a lot of junk out there. So it is quite hard to find very effective methods that do really work and that keep the child engaged. That's the key. So
definitely. I think you're right there. One thing I did want to ask was just thinking, going back to when we were talking about teenagers and they're kind of lost. So in dyslexia sometimes, because dyslexic people tend to be quite intelligent, it's normally they get to a point where they hit a threshold where they can't outwork it. And for some people, that's really young. They get picked up at a young age. Other people, when it hits university with workload, just gets so hard that they can't outwork it and outsmart it anymore. Is there a similar thing happens with dyscalculia?
Oh, for sure. And I think teenagers, because they didn't, it's like building a house with poor foundations. It's going to fall down eventually. So it's almost like they have to go all the way back to learn the basics, the foundations. Even if they have pieced together little bits and bobs along the way, they know that, if they do have to, I was speaking to one of my clients quite recently, and she was just telling me the story of when she found out that she had to do a certain type of maths in her degree. She just fell apart because she was just like, I'm not going to be able to pass that. Absolutely nothing will be able to help me pass that, which means I may as well quit now. And that's just devastating because you're like, well, I suppose in many ways she was led to believe that she couldn't ever learn. And that I think is the real tragedy of the whole process. It's like these kids really they come out believing A, that they are stupid, and B, that they won't ever be able to learn. But neither of those things are true. So, she ended up, getting a tutor and trying to learn what she needed to do, but she just couldn't get there. And then, the amount of guys I speak to as well, who they're going for something like mechanics and, maths comes up and they're like, geez, I left school in year 9. And they left in year 9 because they couldn't do maths. And then they're just trying to chase some kind of skill set. And then, maths jumps in and then they're just put back to square, back to the first, back to the beginning. So it is always, it's just a roadblock that constantly pops up. And I think a lot of the teenagers that I've spoken to, they think that, oh, okay, that's great. I've come all the way through high school. I didn't need to worry too much about the maths because I didn't really do any maths. And then all of a sudden, boom, they're looking at their outline for the degree they want to do. And they're like, well, I can't do that anymore. So yeah, it is, and I went to university and the amount of subjects I did that weren't related to what I was studying. I'm like, why am I learning that? And university is crazy because they just need to fill the course with content. It doesn't matter how relevant it is or not. They just fill it with content, and you're like, what? Why am I studying law here? I'd hire a bloody lawyer.
I did. I went to a modern university, so they were very focused on the engineering, but 2 universities in the city that I studied in, and the kind of old institution, they had to elect certain things, and it's to expand your knowledge outside of the very focused engineering field, and it has its pros and cons. But if you're picking, you're not going to pick an engineering degree if you're dyscalculic, but we'll just stick with that analogy. If you pick an engineering degree because it suits you, and then you're put into you have to do a side subject to build up your credits. But I'm already doing the thing that suits me. I don't want to burn myself out trying to overwork the side subject just for credits. That's really frustrating.
Yes. I've never understood it. But it generally is those side subjects that then one girl I was talking to, she wanted to do fashion. She, going to college and doing fashion. And one of the side subjects was accounting, because it's kind of like they train you to run your own business, I suppose. And then she came undone with that. So you're just like, okay, yeah. Even though, she already struggled with measurements and things like that, but had learned her way around it. And this is the great thing about the dyscalculic brain as well. And I'm sure with dyslexic brain, the non-neurotypical brain, they're really great with problem solving. So they learn how to do it in a different way. They still get to the right place, but they do it in a completely different way, which is quite fascinating. Which is, I suppose your Life Hacks website touches on that, because you just learn a different way. And that's what I was trying to do with the dyscalculia.me site as well. Getting people to write in and saying, well, how do you do this? And how do you do that? And ultimately, I wanted just to start a forum on dyscalculia.me, but it ends up costing quite a lot of money. And I'm really not making any money at the moment, so I can't throw too much money at things like forums. But, it would be, it's great, because that's what people really need. They need to talk to each other. And that's how they can solve.
It's the reason I have a big button in the top right corner that says submit a hack, because please send me your ones too, because I'm really interested to hear what everybody says.
Yes, I saw that. That's really great. Exactly.
It gets people talking. So I'm going to round it off with rapid fire questions, but I do want to touch on one thing before we get to there. I'm going to have to modify the rapid fire questions considering the subject. But any advice for anybody listening who thinks they might be themselves or know somebody who's dyscalculic? How can they tell, or what is a rough sort of test they might be able to do just to kind of see if their assumptions are right?
Well, I would pretty much say that if they have mass anxiety, then the chances of them having dyscalculia are pretty high.
Right.
Because mass anxiety will only happen if just the fact, if you really struggle with mental arithmetic, it's pretty likely that you have dyscalculia. It's just like if you struggle to read, it's pretty likely that you have dyslexia. Okay. So, it pretty much is that. Or, a lot of people definitely link with the bad time management. So really poor time management, the analog clock thing, that's a real telltale sign, that one. I think diagnosis comes quite quickly. And just as soon as and what I find too is that even, people who've grown up with dyscalculia haven't ever heard of it, just have always thought that they're just a little bit stupid.
Yes.
That's literally what they think. Then they find out about dyscalculia and it is a great relief to them. They're like, oh my goodness, that's what I've got. What? That means that I'm not stupid? Pretty much, because that's what it does. It tells you, you're not stupid. You can learn this stuff. You haven't been taught the right way for your particular brain and the way your neural connections have happened. Yeah. And that is a really big relief. Yeah, it's just a really great thing to know that and like dyslexics as well, people with dyscalculia usually have a very, better than average IQ. That's certainly not stupid. Yes. So that's the last thing they are. But so pretty much, I think if you're really bad at mental arithmetic and you still use your fingers to count, that kind of thing, you're more than likely have dyscalculia.
Yeah, no, you run out of fingers pretty quickly, I found. But I do like the trick with the nine times table. Yeah.
And
you can't take shoes off in the middle of the office, though. Why are you wearing sandals today? I'm doing all the maths. Okay, I'm going to round this off with a few rapid fire questions, and I'm going to change the word dyslexia in these questions to dyscalculia because it seems more appropriate. I think we've touched on quite a lot of them anyway. So the first one, you can give me as long answers as you like for these. The first one is, what prejudice do you have about dyscalculia that has been proven wrong?
That they can't do maths.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they can. Yeah. And I also have a theory.
Okay.
Because I think what happens to a dyscalculic brain when they are taught how to do maths? What things are they going to solve? What mathematical problems are they going to solve with their brain? You know what I mean? Because maths really is the foundations of all life when you think about it. And maths is almost like the purest science on the planet. And so when you have someone who thinks differently doesn't think inside, thinks outside the box, especially when it comes to numbers. Where is maths going to go? And it's almost like humanity is doing itself a disservice by not teaching these kids maths, or not making them feel comfortable with it, not making them feel like they can do it. I think it's been a disservice. And so I'm really excited to see what happens in the future with these children who've pretty much been left behind as far as maths goes, and see what they actually do with maths once they can learn, once we teach them in a way they understand. So that's exciting.
Yes. So, okay, next question. How would you describe dyscalculia if an alien come down and asked you?
I would describe it as if an alien came down and asked. I would literally say dyscalculia, or someone with dyscalculia, it's a being who has the ability to do maths, but not the ability to learn maths the way it's been taught.
Yes.
That's what I would say. I would say that they also, with the other things that I mentioned, with dyscalculic, like analog clock, that's neither here nor there. It's a kind of human invention, isn't it? That, it does. But, there's digital clocks and stuff like that now. But the getting lost very easily in time management and all that kind of stuff. And also remembering dance steps, I think coordination is a bit of an issue. Following recipes. But once again, I think any of those things, if you taught them in a different way, it wouldn't be a problem. Time management is a funny one. As far as that's concerned, it's like I just get people to really start using things like their phone, setting alarms on their phone, like leave now. If you've got a gym class at 10:30, set your alarm to go off at 15:15 to say leave for the gym. Yes. And just do as your phone says, So there's so many modern tools now that can help with so much, and especially maps, Google Maps and whatever maps. It's you don't have to read. Yeah, it tells you where to go now. So
it's quite funny, isn't it, that the Bill Gates and Steve Jobs are neurodiverse, and the devices that really help the neurodiverse out are their inventions.
Yeah. It's a real plus, though, isn't it? That some of the greatest minds on the planet have dyslexia. A lot of them do, and dyscalculia most likely as well. They don't really. It's not really out there. Dyscalculia, not as much as dyslexia, but I bet my bottom dollar that a few of them have dyscalculia.
Yeah, I would imagine as dyscalculia becomes more recognised, we all start working out who has come up with things that actually had it, or looking back into time. Okay, so final question of the podcast, and I think I'm going to guess what your answer is, but I'm going to tweet this. It's the Dyslexia Life Hacks show. So normally the question is any dyslexia life hacks, but obviously for you, it will be any dyscalculia life hacks.
Oh, sure. Yeah, okay, dyscalculia life hacks. I think, as far as remembering phone numbers is a big one. Who remembers phone numbers anymore, really? But we should, we should certainly teach our children off by heart one number, in case they need it. But generally speaking, it's always about breaking things down, making things a bit smaller, and then creating a story around it, something that you'll remember, like my grandmother was born on the 5th of the 6th in 1959, and whatever the numbers read, make up a story. So I would say the best thing for any kind of dyscalculia issue is turn it into a language, create a story around it, and, practice as well is really key. So on the website, we have little things like, on your way to work, if you're walking past cars are driving past, take the numbers on the plates and try and add them together, in whichever way your brain can add things together. So practice, because it really does improve your mental maths. But yeah, turn things into languages, turn things into stories, turn things into things that your brain can remember, because it doesn't have to stay as a number. It can turn into whatever you want it to. Yeah, so that would be my overall life hack for dyscalculia.
Cool. Okay, well, is there anything else you'd like to share or promote before we sign off today?
Well, yeah, I really do think for teenagers and adults with dyscalculia, I think learning to get over your maths anxiety and learning how to, I think a lot of self-esteem is affected by our schooling and the experiences we had at school. And then moving forward, I think it really is important just to really understand what dyscalculia is, really recognize that you're not stupid. You can learn maths. You just need to get past the anxiety. And then there are going to be more and more tools coming forward and a better understanding of dyscalculia moving forward. And so there's always going to be more and more help out there for it. So don't let any limiting belief stand in your way. Just work through it. And, you can do it. You can do it. That's my ultimate message, I think. Anything is possible.
Yes, definitely. Well, thank you, Marni, for taking the time and sorting out between our two different time zones to come on the podcast. It's been really interesting.
No problem.
And I've learned a lot. So I will post links to all the websites we've spoken about, particularly dyscalculia.me and Table Fables at dyslexialifehacks.com/podcast. I want to thank everyone for listening, and goodbye.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Bye.